President Trump outlined his tax priorities in a meeting with GOP lawmakers yesterday. Everything from the SALT cap to carried interest. Robert Frank joins us right now with more on what they're kind of hashing out at this point. Hey, Robert.
A lot of things talked about yesterday, Becky. The biggest one was President Trump telling Republicans in that meeting that he would eliminate the carried interest loophole that allows private equity, venture capital, and hedge fund managers to pay a lower rate on part of their earnings. Now, that carry is the 20% they make on their fund profits. The profits are currently taxed at a capital gains rate of 23.8%. Now, many argue that the carry, in fact, is a fee for service and should be subject to ordinary income tax rates of 37%. Now, Trump made the same promise back in 2016, as did Biden in 2020. It has largely survived thanks to lobbying from private equity and hedge funds. Now, the 2017 tax cuts did make it slightly less lucrative. It extended the time that firms had to hold the assets from 1 year to 3 years. Now, the CBO estimates that getting rid of this loophole would raise about $1.4 billion a year. McKinsey says it's about $1.2 billion a year, so not nothing, but not much. It's about a tenth of the price, in fact, of Trump's plan to exempt tips from income tax that he also talked about yesterday. This is still going to face a big fight, as Andrew knows, and we've talked about a lot in this show. The American Investment Council, they represent private equity, saying, quote, "We encourage the Trump administration and Congress to keep this sound tax policy in place that supports jobs, workers, small business, and local communities."
It doesn't do any of those things. It doesn't do any of those things.
Well, they would argue that the private equity guys are incentivized through sweat equity. Right. So therefore, they're taking some risk with this capital, and that it helps all the small businesses that they support, buy, make better, and then sell off. So that's what they argue. But this has been a pet cause of the Democrats for 20 years.
Forgetting about being a Democrat or Republican, and because I think you can talk to lots of people on both sides who would just say it's obscene. And the reason I just want to put it out there on the incentive. It doesn't actually. So if you are a private equity fund, the executives don't need to. The question is, we've decided that we are incentivizing the executives.
Right.
That doesn't change how much money they're going to put to work or not. It's not their money.
That's right. It's the limited partner money.
No, I know, but I just want to be 100% clear about that, because when they say that they need to incentivize the executives, it makes no sense. The other piece is that it's pension fund money.
Yeah.
In large part, right. Which, by the way, is a lot of not-for-profits and others like that, which means that part's tax-free for them.
Yeah.
So there's not the incentive piece. The whole thing is just absolutely bonkers.
The surprising thing to me, Andrew, I agree with that. The surprising thing to me is the estimates for what it would raise.
Very tiny.
Very tiny, which
irrelevant.
Well,
given that the top three hedge fund managers each made more than $2 billion. So either it's been exaggerated in terms of the benefits, or this is just not, it's not going to be what everyone hopes it, or perhaps they're finding ways around it.
That's what I wonder, too, because Elon Musk says he can save $2 billion a day, basically, in what they're doing with Doge. This is $1.4 billion over the course of a year by the better estimate.
It's a small number. By the way, nobody that I know thinks that this loophole should be closed
for revenue purposes. Just a fairness issue.
Argument.
If you believe that the tax policy in America is some kind of manifestation of all of our democracy, of some level of fairness, that you should be a special person over you. This is one of the only
then we should also talk about tips and overtime and all the things that are would cost 10 times what this is going to cost.
If you want everyone participating in the democracy, you got to
have everybody have some skin in the game.
And they don't.
But the other interesting thing Trump mentioned yesterday, I want to eliminate the benefits for billionaire sports team owners, which is presumably that depreciation. They can write off the value of a team or much of it over 15 years. He's going to the Super Bowl after just saying, I want to get rid of those benefits. So it'll be interesting to see whether they follow through. I don't think it's going to raise much revenue, to Andrew's point as well. But this has been something a lot of people have said it's unfair. You buy a sports team, an NFL team, for $6 billion, you write off the value, even though it appreciates massively, as we've seen over the past 10 years. So that's something that he wants to get rid of as well.
Not touching what's called the 1031 exchange in real estate land. Though, by the way, I don't have nearly the same questions about it. I know a lot of people do.
Well, but they eliminated it for almost every other category. Right. For instance, in the art market, that was thriving for years because of 1031 exchanges, and it killed off a large section of that. And people, well, why'd you preserve real estate? But I don't think that's.
But I can actually make an argument to you why I would actually do real estate.
Why?
because the impact on the sort of magnification impact of developing new real estate, selling new real estate, changing hands of real estate is actually helpful to the economy insofar as when you build a building, it creates an enormous amount of jobs. It can develop and create entire areas. I mean, I'm not saying you have to do it. I'm not saying it's the right benefit, but I'm saying when you start to think through, like, what incentives actually have an impact that are helpful, like the private equity one literally has no impact on anything. Yeah. The real estate one, on the margins, it actually might.
Yeah. They've got to show some pay-fors here. These aren't going to raise much, but at least it shows they're trying to find some pay-fors for this $4 trillion it's going to cost.
Right, you're going to have to strip out a lot of incentives, like using the tax code as an incentive for behavior is expensive.
Yes.
If you want to get to those things, to strip out taxes, you're going to have to get rid of a lot of the incentives.
I mean, PE guys make the case that, this is one of the great industries of the United States, and it's very helpful in saving companies that are sick, and even some of the. I know people on the left side of the aisle that virtue signal nonstop, but they will come on here and pitch carried interest. Some of the people I'm talking about, right to your face, and you even ask them, what are you talking about? Why does it make sense? They don't even have a good reason.
There is no reason. There is none. There is none.
I mean, they redo the Washington Monument, but they come on here.
I know it. It's gross.
It's like
it's gross. It's gross.